It's as if an earthquake happened in China and a tsunami has been created from this earthquake, and here comes these waves of Chinese cars pouring into markets all over the world. Guess what's happening right now? The Chinese automakers are taking the countryside, and eventually they want to put the squeeze on markets here in North America. That's what we need to be ready for.
There are massive tectonic changes happening right now in front of our eyes with an all-out war in the auto industry, led by Tesla and the Chinese automakers. Once big and mighty brands like GM, Ford, and others are now fading away fast. As Tesla investors, we have a very special treat meeting with a former GM executive and an auto industry insider. He has some very eye-opening truths to share. First, while China will deny it, make no mistake, China has launched a global car blitzkrieg, now exporting 6 million cars to more than 100 countries this year. He'll also share his forecast for the future of our most beloved car brands. Michael Dunne is a former GM executive when he was president of GM Indonesia, and he's now working as an automotive industry consultant as CEO of Dunne Insights, an advisory firm with expertise in global electric vehicle markets and battery supply chains. Welcome back to the channel again, Michael.
Herbert, great to see you again. I've been looking forward to this conversation.
I know. I get lots of people saying, can you bring Michael back? Bring Michael back. Alexander Mertz pressing me. We need to listen to Michael again. Your X account is on fire. You have these unique kind of sharing what's going on in China, what's going on with the auto market, what's going on with the EV. You just told me that you're actually writing a book about the EV market, the wars, and Tesla and Chinese automakers. Tell me about that chapter that you're writing now.
That's right. I'm in the midst of a book and writing a chapter exactly on that topic. It's 2020, and Tesla's about to start manufacturing the Model 3 in Shanghai. Just weeks into manufacturing, as they're ramping up, what happens? COVID.
Yeah.
Oh, a $2 billion gigafactory in Shanghai with great expectations. The Chinese can't wait to have the world's leading automaker, Tesla, manufacturing cars in their backyard. And suddenly everything gets shut down. And you wonder, like, is Tesla going to find a way?
Mm-hmm.
Of course they will, because Elon Musk negotiates with the city of Shanghai and says, we can't shut down. This is too big. It's too big for China. It's too big for Tesla. We have to be the very last plant to shut down and the very first one to open back up as soon as possible. So how did we get there? But more importantly, how did we get there? And what's the significance of Tesla entering the China market? Allow me to give a little bit of background, because I did live and work in China, Southeast Asia, for 26 years. I feel as though it's my second home. I speak Chinese. I have many Chinese friends. I know all the manufacturers there. And the significance, we could never overstate the significance of what happened when Tesla entered the market in 2020. And here's why. We all know by now that in 2014, Xi Jinping and his top lieutenants gathered and put together this blueprint for the future called Made in China 2025. What was that blueprint about? It said, hey, you know what? China for the last several decades has been chasing global automakers in internal combustion engines, but we haven't ever caught up. Mercedes and Buicks and Hyundais and Hondas and Toyotas rule the roads here in China. We're not happy about that. How do we change the game? So this Made in China 2025 document is, we're going electric. We're going to a new technology. We're not going to follow the global automakers. We're going to take the lead. So from 2015 to 2016, I was there for this time, 2017, 2018, it's a lot of wheel spin, Herbert, because they're ready to go electric. The government is. But guess what? The consumer is like, no, electric's boring. And if you were in China at that time, the products from BYD and others were really boring. They were short range, not very good looking. Charging was not convenient. So all of my friends in China looked at electrics during that period and said, thank you, but no thank you. Oh, by the way, I can get a subsidy from the government, some money back if I buy electric. Maybe, okay, maybe I'll buy one. Or I can get access to roads in Shanghai that I couldn't otherwise do. Okay, maybe I'll buy one. But by and large, the individual buyer in China did not want to have anything to do with electrics. So the Chinese government is frustrated to no end. They put billions of dollars into batteries, battery supply chains, charging, and no one's buying electrics. As recently as 2019, electrics were only 4% of new car sales. So the grand design was, hey, when Tesla was introduced in the United States and in Europe, it was highly disruptive because it changed people's mindset about what an electric car could be. Let's get Tesla over here to do exactly the same thing, to ignite a new enthusiasm for electric vehicles. And so in 2018, electric vehicle sales in China down. In 2019, down again. The Chinese government is getting desperate. Here comes Tesla, 2020, and blows the doors off of everyone's expectations. Sells more than 100,000 cars in the first year. And in that 12 months, completely transformed perceptions of what an electric vehicle could be. And the knock-on effects, Herbert, the halo effect that extended to BYD and other Chinese automakers was sensational. They went from being ignored to, whoa, let's have a second look, to the Neos and the Xpungs and these Li Autos that are incorporating advanced technology with great batteries. And suddenly, electrics in China went from the outhouse to the penthouse. And since then, we've just seen demand for electrics rocket. How much? In 2020, electrics were only 4% of new car sales. This year, 50%, one half in the world's largest market. The industry's never seen such a transformation in such a short period of time. So for my book, there's a before Tesla and an after Tesla in China. You take away Tesla, and I'm pretty sure China would be nowhere near as successful as they are today.
Yeah.
Yeah, I'll pause there. You can see I'm fired up about it because it's such a monumental moment in the history of the car.
I will appreciate you sharing that, because I think most people still don't understand that China needed Tesla and that China wants Tesla there, and Tesla helped China big time, and they're going to continue helping them. Like, they think that Tesla's, any moment in time, China's going to, shut down Tesla or something like that. Just not the case. I love that you told that story, but can you move back a little bit even earlier? Because when Tesla sold the Model S, there's a story that few people are aware of about who actually bought the very first limited edition kind of Model S's that are out there, and why it's so important.
You're absolutely right. That is not well known. And already it's 10 years ago, 2014, Elon goes to China and delivers personally to William Li, the founder of NIO, and to Lei Jun, the founder of Xiaomi. Xiaomi, of course, is the smartphone maker that just introduced this fantastic new car called the SU7. Both of those guys took delivery from Elon and were so inspired. So make no mistake, China's best entrepreneurs have deep respect and admiration for Elon Musk and for Tesla then and now. That was an inspiration. Lei Jun, who's the founder of Xiaomi, said in 2014, he took delivery of the Model S and he said, this is what my dream will be. It took him 10 years, but here we are, a pretty good product he's put out into the market this year.
Yeah, so several Chinese automakers, their founders actually bought the Model S first, were inspired and said, we're going to do the same thing.
We are going to do the same thing. We are going to build the Tesla for China. Now, the great thing about Tesla is it doesn't stand still. So as quickly as the Chinese have moved to compete, Tesla's up until now managed to stay just a step ahead.
So that's I want to go through some of your tweets on the X that you did that I thought were pretty eye-opening, and people don't understand that this is the case. So here's the first one here. You're saying the Great China Car Blitzkrieg. By the way, you have this pinned on your X account. I want to ask you why. This is September. You've kept it there. Officials in Beijing may deny it. They're going to deny this. But make no mistake, China has launched a global car blitzkrieg. China is not just sitting there, I want to do it for my own Chinese country. They want to own the world. China will export a stunning 6 million cars to more than 100 countries this year, cementing its position as the world's #1 exporter. The average price of those made in China cars, $19,000. That's less than half the average price of a new car in America and Europe. consumers in every time zone and are leaving their Chevys, Volkswagens, and Hondas in favor of new models. So you do see that these guys, these Chinese brands, right? They're actually making a success in Europe, and well, they're not here in the US yet. While Chinese automakers steal chunks of market share, Japanese, European, American appear to have no response. The speed and strength of Chinese offensive.
Yes. So here's what's going on, Herbert. As we sit here in North America, it's extremely easy to feel safe and secure and say, I don't see any Chinese cars on American roads or Canadian roads. This is all much ado about nothing. Come on. If they were any good, they'd be right there alongside the Hyundais and Toyotas competing for our dollars. But that would be a mistake, because the reality is that China today is exporting to more than 100 countries. They're the number one exporter in the world. 6 million cars, more than Japan, more than Germany. Where are they going? Well, virtually every country except the United States and Canada, because of our tariffs. So recently I was in Mexico. Last week I was in Indonesia. The week before in Thailand. Everywhere I go, I'm stunned by the number of Chinese cars on the road and the number of brands being marketed. It's as if an earthquake happened in China and a tsunami has been created from this earthquake, and here comes these waves of Chinese cars pouring into markets all over the world. I get texts from people in places like Costa Rica, Israel, Spain, you name it, South Africa, saying, wow, Australia, wow, the Chinese cars are coming in here. So think of it this way. The Chinese are really attacking the global South, if you will, all markets except for North America, biding their time. And there's even a classic Mao Zedong, Chairman Mao strategy that inspires this approach. And that is during China's Civil War, 1945 to 1949. By the way, Herbert, my master's degree is in Chinese history, so I know a thing or two about modern Chinese history. This is relevant, though, about cars. So Mao set out, and he's there in a civil war with Chiang Kai-shek. Chiang Kai-shek occupied the wealthy cities along the coast of China. Mao had the vast countryside. So he said the way to victory is take the countryside and surround the cities and eventually overwhelm those cities. In Chinese, it was called 以农村包围城市. So guess what's happening right now? The Chinese automakers are taking the countryside, and eventually they want to put the squeeze on markets here in North America. That's what we need to be ready for. Don't fall asleep. Don't say, oh, I don't see Chinese cars, therefore they must not be competitive. Nuh-uh.
Oh my God, that's such an eye-opening statement there. I follow the auto industry quite closely. I know what BYD's president just said, which is, we're not going to go to the US, but they're building factories in South America. They're everywhere. And so you're saying that the global blitzkrieg that they're doing. Thank you for that share. That's very eye-opening. You shared this photo, which is great. Just all the red cars everywhere. Dunne Insights, your advisory firm. This is pretty exciting. If I asked everybody right now, who is the number one exporter of Chinese cars, they'll say BYD. Well, no. There's a company called Chery, number one, SAIC. SAIC, are they Chinese owned?
Yes, they are. That's Shanghai Auto Industry Corporation.
Right. So they're actually Chinese government owned. Chang'an, Great Wall, BYD, Geely. So when Chinese government decides to support these companies and they want them to succeed, they're investing in them and they want them to go global. Tell me more about Chery. It's like number one vehicle exporter. That's right. Chery, Wuhu based state. Oh, so even Chery is also government owned. It moves like a private company.
Yes, it is. It acts like a private company, but it's a state enterprise. And I know the chairman and CEO, good friend of mine, first time I met him was right around 2001. And I said, what's the story with your company name?
Oh, yeah, I know the story, but go ahead.
You do?
I think so.
Okay. So
lucky, what is it? The Chinese word for, what is it?
That's right. In Chinese is qi rui, auspicious, lucky, good fortune. And then he said, I needed an English equivalent that would be memorable. So he went through the dictionary. He goes, oh, well, kind of cherry,
Sure.
Cherry. And he goes, no, that's too predictable.
Yeah.
Let me take off one of those R's and just make it cherry. So
It's a good name. It's a good name.
Good name, easy to kind of bring the smile to
Cheery,
your face.
you know, happy.
Cheery. Yes.
It's safe, but actually they're friggin' government owned. So
Government owned.
it's like, what the friggin'?
I mean, they're so likable. There's their small entry level vehicle at $5,500 is called the ice cream. So you can have the cherry ice cream for $5,500. I mean, who's gonna?
Cherry on top.
Yeah, beautiful. So what's their story, and why are the top three exporters from China are all state-owned enterprises? If you remember, there was Chery, then SAIC, and Chang'an. What's going on there? When China was making this massive pivot to electrics between 2020, when Tesla got in there, and today, what happened was the state enterprises had for years been making gasoline-powered vehicles. That market inside China was vanishing before their very eyes. So they're sitting on massive capacity and a lot of employees. And if there's one rule in China, they talk about the government wants to maintain stability at all costs. That means keeping jobs at all costs. So there's this great pivot made by the state enterprises to say, hey, we have to find new markets. We've got nothing here at home. Let's go global. And in between 2020 and today, we've seen exports shoot up from 1 million units a year in 2020 to 6 million this year, and possibly as much as 8 or 10 million by 2030. Now, you can imagine the shock that this is delivering to established global automakers of gasoline-powered vehicles around the world. Here come these more than 1 million Cherries this year, more than 1 million SAIC products flooding into markets worldwide, Brazil, Mexico, and so on. And as a result, we start to see headlines. Volkswagen is closing plants, laying off people. Honda and Nissan are deciding to merge. GM just took a $5 billion charge on his China operations. It's like that tsunami, Herbert. Like, it's hitting our shores and shaking everything up.
Yeah, these cars don't look terrible, right? I mean, this is, but you're saying that they're normally the lower priced cars?
They're lower price, low cost, especially the Chery. Their differentiation today is low cost, but don't take that as a singular dimension. At the same time, they're working very quickly to improve quality and design, including, get this, at BYD, they have a design team of how many people? 600. Led by a former Audi designer named Wolfgang Egger, who's got 600 employees all around the world, many of them based in Europe. So you're like, China's basically hiring the best of the best designers from around the world, and their cars are vastly improved on that front. So you got improving quality, improving design, still low cost. Whoa, and up to 25 to 30% lower cost than what it takes to manufacture the same vehicle here in the United States. So it has the CEOs. My work is to advise automakers, suppliers around the world on how to sort of respond to this, this threat from coming out of China.
It's war, yeah. First of all, I think that Chery's logo looks like Toyota. They kind of copied it a little bit. But so that's not...
You know what the expression in China is around copying, purloining? So they say R&D in China stands for receive and duplicate. Okay. That's unfair, a little bit unfair, because was much truer before. Today they're getting very innovative, but it's still worth.
It's so hilarious. Receive and duplicate. That's already. I love it. First time I heard that one. Okay, so let's have this little debate, because you believe that the Chinese car companies is going global and they're a real threat. There are a couple people that I respect in the auto industry who've told me that they believe that it's overblown. And the reason why is that in order to really become a true car company, a leading auto company, you need scale. Once you have scale, then you can really have lower cost, higher quality, all that kind of comes together. But China won't be able to scale much. They'll stick to the Chinese market. Why? Because a couple of reasons. One is the reason why they're successful in China is because they have low cost employees. And BYD is a good example of this, where they're actually not automated. They don't have a lot of robots in their factories because low cost employees, they don't spend the money on automation. So then when they try to create a factory that's not in China, it's not something that they can do. They can't bring that supply chain over them with them, which is they're so strong in China. That's one. And two is all of these tariffs and these requirements. So the idea was that they're not going to do it. And then the other angle that they told me was software. So yes, the software could work in China. It's not something that you can just make available and work in the US and other countries. What's your position on that?
Those are good points. Very good points. So let's take the scale first. It's a great point in the sense that BYD is arguably the only world-class Chinese automaker today. They do have the scale. They'll build about 4 million cars, and they do have exports of about 10% of that. So they're able to enter and compete in markets around the world. After that, it drops off dramatically. So your Neos and Xpengs and Li Autos and even Leap Motor, terrific vehicles, but they're all losing money because they don't have that scale yet. So it's a fair point to say when it comes to electrics, there's really only one global contender today, that's BYD. On the other hand, you do have these Chang'ans and Cherries and SEICs that are making unbeatably low-cost vehicles, and those vehicles are bound to win in most markets around the world outside the United States and Europe. So I think it's dangerous to discount Chinese ambitions and their wherewithal to improve quality and get to scale. So that's number one. Second one, it gets much more interesting in the sense that the US government has recently, as this past fall, said vehicles that feature any Chinese hardware or software are not welcome in this market. So that's kind of a slamming the door shut on Chinese brands here in the United States and probably in Canada for this foreseeable future. That's very serious. I mean, if you talk about Chinese hardware or software, you're talking about basically, well, how do we get around this rule? We can't because we're Chinese manufacturers. So I think one other way to think about this, Herbert, is in the past, the mark that a brand had succeeded was when they were able to enter and compete in the United States.
Right.
Because we're ultimately the most lucrative market. Not the biggest anymore, China is, but the most lucrative market. So if you make it in the United States, you're world class. China, with its scale, has the ability, what if it wins out in all the other markets in Southeast Asia, South America, Africa, the Middle East, and we suddenly find ourselves on an island? I think that China would have the wherewithal to kind of overwhelm us eventually. They'd be the new standard for the world. And we'd be sort of looking from the outside in. So it's changed. It isn't Japan or Korea, an allied country we can sit down and have negotiations with, democracies, and say, hey, let's make this work. You guys bring transplants. After all, we're on the same team. With China, it's genuinely an adversary. And their ambition is to say, hey, we're the largest market in the world. We're the largest vehicle producer in the world. We make more electrics than all the other countries combined. We own the battery supply chain. We're the number one. And everyone else better pay attention. So we're into new territory, Herbert, and time will tell whether or not they'll succeed going global.
Can you speak a little bit to how much the Chinese government is actually giving incentives and disincentives in China? Because you just said earlier that China hit a milestone this year, didn't they? They're now 50% of all new car sales are NEVs, both EVs and the hybrids. But it's basically skyrocketing up. And the reason why they are is because China is helped create these companies, funded them, and they're giving massive incentives, right, to consumers and all that. The reason I bring that up is that, here in the US, we have all this debate right now, should there be an AV credit? And they're like, no, even Elon says we don't need it. And I'm like, but if China is giving their EV credits, this is a global economic warfare here. It's not about whether or not you're funding gas versus EV. It's about you have one country that's going to do this, and what does that mean where we are in the future, right? So, what kind of incentives? People always wonder.
How do we respond to that?
People always wonder whether or not these Chinese companies are actually being funded subsidies, or they are not being funded, and so they think that they are, and that's why they're even like surviving.
Absolutely, 100%. They're being subsidized and funded. It's part and parcel of what we have come to know as state capitalism, where the state, China's government, says that market, that industry we want to dominate. So solar panels, 10 years ago, China determined we want to totally and utterly dominate the industry.
Yeah,
today, China accounts for 90+%. Okay.
Yeah.
Shipbuilding, we want to dominate shipbuilding. Whoa, they totally and utterly dominate shipbuilding. And now in their crosshairs are automotive. And what does subsidies look? People ask me, do they have subsidies? Of course, it's kind of like asking, does a chef, do they have spices in their kitchen? I mean, it's part and parcel of what state capital. It isn't like they don't even think of it as subsidies. They just go, we're going to own that industry. What do we need to throw in there? Free land, let's give free energy. How about subsidizing this and that whatever it takes, we are going to win that industry.
Yeah.
And so we in a market capitalist society look at that and go, well, maybe we'll add some subsidies here and there. But it's like boxers in the ring and or NFL Sunday. One team's completely juiced and the other team's not. Yeah. And the team that's not saying, hey, those guys are juiced, and the referees are kind of shrugging, going, I don't know, but they're bigger and faster and they're winning. So what are you going to do? That's where we are with China. It's at another level, and we don't necessarily have an answer, except for in the short term, throw up some tariffs and try to think this through. Like, how are we going to compete with this kind of machine the world's never seen before?
Yeah. Let's go back to Tesla then. Where does Tesla fit into this? Elon himself has said that Tesla, in the future, he sees Tesla will be the leader, and then you're going to have 9 other Chinese companies.
Yeah.
So we'll talk about the brands and how they're dying. That's another conversation we'll reserve later in the segment here. But right now, Tesla. So can you answer that question? People are like going, oh, like the one of the biggest shorts for Tesla was Cheney and
Chanos,
Jim Chanos. Now he had to fold, right? But Jim Chanos, and he was on an interview and he was asked the question of why are you short Tesla? And he said, China. He goes, and any, like a third of Tesla's revenue comes from China. At any moment, the government will just take them out and take the ownership of everything. Can you explain why that may not be even possible?
Tesla's been on a phenomenal run since those early days of 2020, just way beyond anyone's expectations. So half of global production for Tesla today is centered in China. And as a result of that, the efficiencies of scale and low-cost manufacturing, they can export to markets all over the world. They do. So it's been a phenomenal run so far. It is also true that China does present risk to any global company operating there on a scale or magnitude that is in a league by its own. So whether you're Apple or Tesla or GM or Boeing, the risks are real. At any moment, the Chinese government can decide for any reason that it wants to take things in a different direction. So how does Tesla continue to survive and thrive there? Because Elon and co. continue to innovate more quickly than everyone else, including the Chinese. And as long as that's true, the Chinese government will say, you stick around, we're still learning from you. You're of value to us. But let's be honest, if for some reason Tesla's moving into AI and robotics, this is examples of that innovation that China admires and respects. But say, for example, just for fun, if Tesla said, that's enough, we've taken things far enough, that's our product. As soon as that stops, China would start to look and say, you're not that useful to us anymore. We're not kicking you out, but we're going to make life a little less convenient for you. What does that look like? Oh, you want to renew your license for manufacturing in Shanghai? Come back and check with us in a couple of months. We're really busy here. Little needly things in China that I saw and experienced firsthand for decades there. China has a way of allowing foreigners to ultimately decide, oh, I'm no longer really welcome here. I'll go home. I don't think Tesla's in that danger zone yet, but that danger zone is real. General Motors is a perfect example of that. At one point, China was GM's biggest market and very profitable. They take home $2 billion a year, easy. When I worked at GM, we called it the profit machine. That was not that long ago. Today, GM sales are down 70% from that peak. They're losing hundreds of billions of dollars. They just took a $5 billion charge on their China operations, and they're restructuring. The joint venture might break apart. Who knows? Maybe GM in the next few years will exit. So let's be real. The risks in China are real, but Tesla's in a class of its own when it comes to innovation.
Great
That's
answer.
Why it's in strong standing
what is the likelihood that today, right now, Tesla is going to roll out full self-driving? Will they be able to do robotaxi in China? That's the thing that matters most to all of us right now. What's your read on the ground there?
That's going to be, I think, look for an incremental rollout. In other words, the Chinese have this expression like it says, when you cross the river, do it by feeling the stones. So they don't like the idea of leaping, oh, go ahead, do your full self-driving here, we're good. They'd say, let's start experimenting in the greater Shanghai area, then the province of Jiangsu, then Eastern China. So I'm thinking a multi-year rollout rather than a once-off, oh yeah, go have at it. That's the Chinese way, and they want to be very careful because of national security concerns about any foreign automaker doing autonomous driving in the People's Republic. That's just a reality. The regulators are on it.
Gotcha. But on the what you said earlier, though, it's true, which is there's a technology that is like life-changing, right? It's like changing for existential for auto. If you're an EV company, it's one thing to become an EV company. It's another thing to then become autonomous. And then if you're not even autonomy, you're dead. So the Chinese companies, none of them have this capability. I mean, there's a lot of them that are saying that they're doing it, but they're not really. It's like a Waymo thing. And so they'll want to partner with Tesla and then take that as part of their thing. And then the reason I'm saying this is because autonomy is not a huge economic advantage. If you are able to go fast and become autonomous transportation, the cost for everything you're doing will plummet. Your supply chain, your exports, all that will go down. And so they want to do this and then have a tremendous advantage and regain their loss. They're starting to lose that power of becoming the global distribution country in the world that they've owned for decades.
That's a great point, Herbert, because just as we saw the Chinese consumer took to Tesla not just because it was powered by a battery, but because it featured advanced technology through that center stack screen and navigation and intuition. So that was a wow moment. And here we are, the next wow moment, that's autonomy. And you're absolutely right, the Chinese government would love for its own automakers to plug into that. So in one form or the other, maybe it's through licensing deals, that's the recipe going forward. I just would caution any foreign company stepping into China always has some shackles on. You're never sprinting freely in China. You're always sort of monitored.
What's your thoughts? I know you're an auto expert on the industry about robots and humanoid robots. You mentioned earlier, right, that China picks an industry and they want to win it, and they win it. They did the same thing with humanoid robots. They made a huge announcement, I don't know, 6 months ago, less than a year ago, and they said, we are going to be the global leader in humanoid robots. By I think we're going to have the most, and then we're going to be the leader by 2027, and they're going to fund it like crazy. Do you know anything about this or any ideas about it?
The good news for us in the West is China does not always succeed with its, ambitions. So, for example, for more than a decade now, they've wanted to be the leader in chips. They haven't gotten there.
Yeah.
They have become the leader in drones, which is not good news for us.
Right.
And here we go with the robots and the humanoid. I think that it's early days when I would take them seriously. When they say they have ambitions to lead in that sector, we can't sleep on it. Yeah.
But I guess what I'm saying is that it's almost like what's happened with the EV industry, where China will go, hey, Tesla, you're the leader in humanoid robots. We want you here as long as you build them here and you use our supply chain to build them. And then that lets the other robot companies that are in China, R&D.
Absolutely. Like people, as an advisor to investors in China over the last 25, 30 years, people ask me, what are the risks? What are the chances of our technology being purloined or copied? And how big a risk is that? And I said, that's something you don't have to lose sleep over at night. You can bank on it 100%.
I'll answer for you now.
It's going to happen. It's just a matter of time.
Yeah.
So that's real. And but on a more serious point, back to your point, yes, this is why.
Like who needs who more? Does China need Tesla more, or does Tesla need China more at this point? Yeah. What's your answer to that? Who needs who more at this point? Just now, right now.
Right now, today, it's pretty much 50-50. Yeah, okay. I think that Tesla does need that manufacturing base and that market. I mean, if you take China out of the equation tomorrow, half of your global production is gone and a third of your global market is gone. That would be a major setback. On the other hand, China's without Tesla is looking like, okay, where's that innovation come from again? Yes, increasingly Chinese companies are confident and they do a lot of innovation, but why was it only after Tesla entered that things really took off? They have to be thinking that.
Yeah, that's what I'm thinking, that the robot innovation, which is like the next innovation that they're doing, it's just going to be China will need them again, and then they're going to keep supporting them and favoring them. And, it's massive. Okay, let's get back to the premise of what you're saying, which is China is now pretty well have survived, right? We don't know yet. I mean, how many of these car companies do you think will survive? Is it indefinite, the subsidies? But you're saying they're going to attack already globally.
Yes. Well, if we think about China's own domestic market as a canary in the coal mine, just go with me on this for a second. So the global automakers utterly dominated that market from 2000 to 2020. Just from the top to the bottom, from Chevy all the way to Mercedes, Audi, Porsche. And now suddenly we're seeing that market for global automakers is vanishing, even for the likes of Porsche. Porsche sales this year down a third in China, closing dealerships. It's unthinkable. Yeah. All my wealthy Chinese friends
used to want a Porsche.
Just adored Porsche and Mercedes. They're on a level like almost godlike. And suddenly someone popped the balloon and they're not that desirable anymore. What's going on? It's a shock. So if that can happen in the world's largest market, China, where consumers care a lot about brands, the Chinese are feeling pretty confident. Oh, if we can knock these guys off at home, maybe we can do so globally. Now, there's way too many Chinese brands. There's way too much capacity at home. There's very little margin, almost zero. So these Chinese automakers must go global in order to survive. It's like oxygen.
Interesting.
If they stay home, they'll drown in their own overcapacity. So
they're all competing with each other, aren't they? Like they're knocking. No, my car has a fridge. my seats swivel. Like they're all trying to like differentiate themselves by saying, "I've got this new tech."
Mine has a pull-down screen for PowerPoint presentation to the back seat, and I have some extra massage here in this one. So they're competing like crazy, beating each other up at home. And this is why the U.S. market is so valuable to them, because that's the promise of profits. And I think the United States is right to, for the time being, shut the door. Hold on. We got to get our act together. Otherwise, you guys just pour in here with low-cost vehicles.
All right. Well, let's talk about what's going to happen to these brands and legacy. This guy Markham Mislop said legacy automakers caught off guard by rapid change in global industry. Imagine 5 years from now when Alberta oil CEOs are gobsmacked by the rapid decline of their once mighty industry. Dunne Insights with the insider's view of the auto industry. So you said this: people talk about China's speed. Now its impact is being felt not just inside China but worldwide. And then there has been, and I don't know, I mean, you and I've been reporting this, but it's like, yeah, they'll survive. Yeah, that's okay. Volkswagen plants closing and layoffs, Honda Nissan merger, GM $5 billion charge in China business, like they're just losing money there. Stellantis CEO abrupt dismissal. That's just a list. Like this was last week, Honda and Nissan to begin merger. These two Japanese big companies, brands, and eventually tie up with Mitsubishi. They're just they're losing, so they're helping each other save me money. This. What do you see? What's going on?
It's as if an alien has come. You know, you have this global auto industry with this hierarchy with the Germans on top of the premiums, and then you have your Toyotas and Hyundais doing great job of quality, and you have give and take North American trucks for the Detroit 3, and everyone's sort of got their comfort zone. Is competitive, but not hyper competitive. And now you have this meteor or alien crashing into this atmosphere and upending everything that we thought was forever and calling into question everything. So now all of a sudden there's pressure. Where's the money? Losing jobs. How good are we? They're so fast. They have fewer regulations than we do. They're subsidized. This is a machine that we don't recognize or have an answer for. So I think short term, there's these adjustments, and I'm feeling like Tesla is certain to survive and thrive for years to come.
Yep.
Virtually every other legacy automaker in the world looks vulnerable to me today. And I can't believe I'm saying that as I'm saying it, but it's true. Even the German premiums, who looked invincible just a few years ago, are vulnerable. When I meet with the people in Europe, in Asia, and here in the United States, I'm talking about automakers and tier one suppliers. They're genuinely stunned. What's our answer to this thing called China?
What's your answer to that? I mean, what do you advise them? Do you agree? You're a GM executive. You're a president of GM Indonesia. Do you say agree with their, okay, well, we're going to do hybrids. You know, we're going to fool the consumer that they're electric, but in the meantime, it really just an ice and a slap on a small battery. Get the incentive. Is that the right strategy for them? Would you do that, or go full force with EV? Because you have to grow. The only way to win in EV is get over 200,000 sales. Go full force, make it happen. Otherwise, you're dead anyways. Like you're not really buying yourself time. What's your strategy?
Here's what's scary for them is one big question is the one you're asking: which propulsion system? Do we sort of pivot to EREVs or PHEVs here in the United States because of distance and range anxiety? They might even solve that or guess correctly. But layered on top of that is this big beast called software.
Yep.
And this is where Tesla and the Chinese are miles ahead today, and where, you know, we've seen Volkswagen carry out, Ford, GM really struggle with software. And it's a language they've been speaking Portuguese for 100 years. Now they're asked to learn, I don't know, Thai. Yeah. And they're going, wait a second. Yeah. You said I got Portuguese down like a science. Now you're asking me to talk. And this is the one that worries them the most. So what do I tell them? I think that they almost have to create, as Ford is doing, a skunk works here in California. Yes. Completely independent, 100% from the mothership. Otherwise, they won't be able to keep up.
Michael, why don't you tell them to partner with Tesla?
Does Tesla
license FSD? Come on.
They'll get there eventually.
You could do it. You're the guy. You're the guy that's going to broker that. Point. Come on, just do it.
Right. Think about it. That forever they said, no way, we're not going to join Tesla supercharger. And no, we're going to do it our own, but we're relying on third party. And then suddenly they buckle one after another. change their mind. Well, we might see the same thing with software.
Yeah, tell me if I'm right. I've been saying this, repeating a few times. I apologize if people have heard this already. Tell me if I'm right. What I understand is this. If you're a legacy automaker and you're leading in an industry and a revolution comes in, first thing you'll do is say, I'll do it myself. So then they create an EV visit. When that fails and they're struggling, they'll go, let's do an association. Let's do a consortium. Let's all legacy, a few of us get together and we'll fund the R&D. We'll do our software together. We'll all, fund the FSD together. When that fails, then they go to a low cost partner and they'll pick China and they'll get the Chinese to help them create these things at a lower cost. When that fails, then they'll go crawling to Tesla, which is their main competitor.
They underestimate what the other side wants out of the deal. Yeah. Oh, we'll just go to China and create low cost. What do you think the Chinese are thinking? Yeah. So please, go ahead.
Is this right? Is this the right pathway?
Totally. Totally.
So get them to partner with Tesla. You can do it.
All right. It's on.
Otherwise, tell me what's going to happen to these brands. And so you have this post again, people, you should follow him at Dunne Insights on X. These are just gold. So you said this, if you're a seller of mass market brands, you're highly vulnerable to China. In China, most Western automakers will be forced to exit the market in the next 5 years or now, if not sooner. Chinese brands' share of market share was 36, now in 2024, 65. And by 2030, your forecast is 85% of basically China's market will be owned by Chinese brands. Most resilient among foreign brands is Mercedes, BMW, Lexus, and Toyota. Then you pointed out that a Chinese company called Geely, they already bought Volvo. They already bought MG?
Lotus.
Lotus, yep, there's Lotus.
Yes.
And so
Smart
it's like
is a joint venture with Mercedes.
Yeah, they're buying brands that die. And they're just going to keep that brand alive. What did I leave out? I mean, and so I guess you're making 2 points here. One is they're buying the famous brands, but they're also just coming up with too many brands. Like, what's going on here?
Yes. So they did have just 2 months ago, Chairman Li Shufu, I've known since 2003, did have he went to his hometown in Taizhou, which is he grew up on a farm. Great story. Didn't finish high school. He's been a phenomenal entrepreneur. And he said, hey, you know what? We've gone too wide. Too many brands. Let's be smarter about this. So they're consolidating. You saw that long list. They're consolidating. But they've been phenomenally successful with their acquisition of Volvo in 2010. Done a great job there. They're going to do a great job with Lotus. They have the joint venture with Mercedes around the smart vehicle. So look for them to selectively acquire more brands and just a fewer overall brands, but be smarter about them. And in particular, one to watch right now, Herbert, is Buick. But because Buick has essentially become a Chinese brand, most of the production's there, biggest markets there. Yeah. And as GM and its partner kind of break up, there's talk on the street in China that maybe a Chinese company will just decide to buy it. What's $1 billion? How about $1 billion? How about a couple $1 billion for the Buick brand?
So yeah, I was mentioning, my assumption is that almost every single famous legacy iconic brands will be owned by Chinese. Except for except for the ones that are owned by families. And so Ford, because the family owned automotive, Toyota. Because it's their family. Like, they've created this thing. They don't want to let go. I think they will partner with Tesla when they're about to die instead of selling. But then the ones who are run by, what was that? Stellantis, right? Stellantis is, they didn't decide to renew the CEO. So these CEOs have 3-year kind of time frames of 10 years. They don't care. They're here for 3 years. They don't care about this company. And so the company will just die or get so low price, and then the Chinese will swoop them up because they've got great brands. What's your vision of what's going to happen to these current brands? Yeah.
You can imagine. I totally agree with you. I think Ford. Then you have Toyota, maybe Honda, but Honda's already merging with Nissan, which made me a little bit nervous. Yeah. And then you look at, very, very much agree with your stance with regards to there won't be that many that won't be subject to or targets of an acquisition, including, it's not that well known that Mercedes today is 19% owned by Chinese entities.
Yeah. That's
19%.
people don't realize it's already happening. They just don't,
Yeah.
they just assume.
Uh-huh.
Wow. So you've really blown my mind a bit of what's going on. Okay. The Chinese are expanding, their struggles, their challenges. They may not win, but they're looking like they're about to. Any other like predictions of what might happen in the future? What's going to happen in the future?
A couple things, Herbert. One is just to emphasize again, because I'm from Detroit, because I'm American, because I lived in Asia for so long, come back to the United States, it's easy to fall into some sort of complacent stance with regards to China and say, we don't see them on the roads here, so it's not really a threat. And they've been talking, the Chinese have been doing like the boy who cried wolf forever. We're coming, but we don't go. We're coming, but we don't go. So don't make the mistake of discounting it's for real. They're just encircling us. Yeah, that's number one. Number two, prediction for 2025. A lot of people ask me, well, we've shut the door on exports for the Chinese. Will they come in directly? And we have heard President Trump a couple of times say,
build a factory here.
Bring your billions. We're going to make it easy for you. So imagine a scenario where BYD says, hey, we'll partner with Ford. We'll set up in Detroit. We'll bring $3 billion. And we'll bring our batteries and supply chains with us too. We'll employ a ton of American workers, tax revenues for everybody. How about that? And I could see President Trump going, look at what look at that. How beautiful is that? So that's something to keep an eye on. At the same time, Congress and others rightly are concerned about national security. So there would be checks and balances. There'd be supervision of such an investment. You can bet on it.
And then what about Tesla?
Tesla, gosh, this fourth quarter has been sensational. I think the number one thing I keep in mind when I wake up in the morning is time and time again, do not ever bet against Elon Musk and Tesla. Just don't do it. They continue to surprise on the upside, and here we go again. It's such a sensational story and so good for the American spirit. Can you imagine, Herbert, if we're sitting here and we're looking at this challenge from China and we go, well, we had the Detroit 3 or 2.
Yeah, we don't have an American. And that, I mean, for so long, the government wasn't supporting Tesla as an American company. Another question
that was outrageous, actually. Just so sad. Yeah. Anyway, that's for
another question for you about China. So you got Tesla, Model Y, Model 3, top sellers, very expensive. I think Zeekr on your list there was one of the high-end competitors to the Model Y, but the rest, right? In China, they own the low-end market. BYD's all the low-end. Tesla has the high-end. And yet Tesla's still the number one vehicle being sold there. What happens when Tesla releases more affordable vehicles? What happens to, like, at some point I was actually telling people, wait, why are you afraid of BYD killing Tesla? It's like, isn't it the other way around? You got Tesla about to release low-cost vehicles. What will happen to those guys when Tesla releases these in China?
That's right. Half of what BYD sells today half the vehicles are priced under $21,000. So just to give our audience a perspective, like the U.S. average price of a new car is what, 48? So they're really at 21 and under is half their vehicles. Tesla comes in there, and you can imagine those buyers today go, well, I'd like to move up a bit to something more prestigious, something more exclusive, something foreign. And there's still a foreign cachet that's strong around Tesla. So it'll be interesting. You know, on the face of it, Herbert, I'd be nervous personally to fight the Chinese on cost and go that direction. But if anybody can do it, Elon can do it.
I don't think they are. I think what they're going to do is more affordable vehicles that are, he already said, at $30,000, but after the incentives. And then they're not going to go and create a $25,000 car. What they're going to do is bring in robotaxi. That's your low cost competitor right there. Like, why sell a low cost? Let BYD and the others do that.
Yes.
It's robotaxi.
100% agree.
How likely would BYD partner with Tesla for robotaxi? Is that a zero chance or is there a high chance?
Ooh.
From what you know about BYD and how they run and how they think.
They have a very close relationship with Apple now, as you know. They're making a lot of the screens for our iPads. And BYD and Apple worked very closely together on the Blade battery. This is not widely known. So for years, that battery was probably going to go into an Apple car of the future. When that didn't materialize,
BYD batteries are partnering with Tesla. Tesla buys BYD batteries.
Yes, and Tesla buys BYD batteries. So BYD, very pragmatic company led by Wang Chongfu, an engineer who just says, does it make sense? Let's do it. So I could see a scenario where BYD and Tesla definitely cooperate in that aspect.
Yeah, BYD licenses Tesla's FSD, and you're going to be the consultant that makes that happen. Okay, so
thank you.
Marching orders.
2025.
Okay, so Dunne Insights, you're amazing. People, you should go to his website, sign up for his newsletter. I think you've got a program there as well. And your book, what's the book name, and when's it coming out?
So my publisher has sworn me not to reveal the title of the book, but to describe it.
Well, you told me the title. I thought it was awesome.
Something to do.
I didn't sign any NDA, but it was a good name.
Something to do with this great battle for supremacy in electric vehicles and, robo-taxis of the future between the United States and China. Where is it today and where's it headed tomorrow? That's the book. Yeah.
Okay. Thank you very much. When is it going to be published?
We're looking at Q4 2025.
Next year. Okay.
Yeah.
Wow. Lots going to happen in that year. Michael, thank you very much. You're so much fun. And you, again, just information that few people are aware of that they need to be aware of. This is like, we think we're following the industry, but we're really not. And you shared some info, and that's what we want, get smarter. Thank you very much, Michael. Thank you.
An honor, a pleasure, a joy. Thank you for having me.
See you soon. Bye-bye.
All right.
I've created a website that is the most comprehensive resource for the Tesla investor. Please check it out. Simply go to my website at herbertong.com.